No, don't worry. I'm awake. Hey Twisted people, it's your Twisted Woman here, Chauncey K. Robinson, and today I am doing a spoiler-free review of the new Netflix original movie, Awake. Before we get to the review, I want you to tell me in the comments what are some of your fave dystopian, what-if, disaster scenario science fiction movies. Let me know, comment down below. After a sudden global event wipes out all electronics and takes away humankind's ability to sleep, chaos quickly begins to consume the world. Only Jill, an ex-soldier with a troubled past, may hold the key to a cure in the form of her own daughter. The question is, can Jill safely deliver her daughter and save the world before she herself loses her mind? Awake is a paint-by-the-numbers, you've probably seen something like this before, science fiction, disaster, what-if, dystopian movie. But it's done well enough with its constant action, high tension, and a somewhat unique central plot. The movie gets started pretty quickly. It's an hour and 30 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. And within that hour and 30 minutes, something is always happening. And not so much to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, this is too much happening, but like, oh my gosh, this won't let up. It's kind of intense with the constant things that are going on and the descent that happens after the initial situation begins. So it keeps your attention. It doesn't give you too much time to breathe, which is a good thing with a plot like this, because if not, you might kind of feel like it drags. I feel like the initial default by some people will be to compare this to A Quiet Place or Bird Box when it comes to the thing of a what if scenario, what if you couldn't use sound, what if you couldn't use sight sort of thing. But Awake is actually really different from that. In fact, the only real central theme that is similar to those other two franchises is the fact that you have a mother at the center of it trying to protect her children. In this particular case, it's not so much that you have to choose not to make sound, or you have to choose to stay awake, or choose not to see, or something like that. It's more so that humankind cannot. So the scenario is, what would happen if people cannot sleep? Like, they literally can't fall asleep, and what would happen to the brain and society when it comes to what would happen scientifically, as we already know, when people are deprived of rest and sleep, which you don't think initially would be something kind of scary. You think maybe they could take some type of medicine or something like that. But this movie really goes to the extreme to show you just how intense and insane things can get in this kind of scenario. I thought the central plot of this was interesting, not because it's never been done before in some sort of storytelling. Funny enough, just weeks ago, I actually read an old school horror short story that dealt with what if you took away the ability for people to sleep. But it was like a choice. It was more so, it was something that would make it so people would be more efficient because they had all 24 hours of the day and had no use for sleep. So I think this is a concept that has been, touched upon before. And I thought it was interesting to see it in this particular setting, that it wasn't necessarily people choose to sleep and so far they're so efficient, but what would happen to the dark side of that? But more so they can't and they want to, and their bodies need to. So that's kind of the other end of the spectrum. And I thought that was kind of a unique concept to see what that would be. Because I don't know about you, when I don't get my full 8 hours or so, I can be pretty cranky. And let me say, the people in here were beyond cranky. With that said, it's somewhat bleak. I mean, things go from 0 to like not even 60, 0 to 100 very quickly. And so it's one of those scenarios where you have to, I'm not going to say suspend your disbelief, because that would be a thought process to say that you don't think that humanity could descend to that kind of chaos if some situation like that happened. And I think with events that we've seen that, yes, chaos can happen and people can turn on each other and things like that. So it's not that far-fetched necessarily, but that doesn't make it any less bleak the way that the movie goes into how bleak it gets fairly quickly when humanity is deprived any kind of rest. So if you're looking for something a little lighthearted, a little less high intensity, dark, and things like that, you're not finding it here. Now, I also will say that this movie is somewhat predictable. It is a somewhat paint by the numbers disaster scenario. Yes, the central plot is unique in the way they're going about it to a certain degree, but after that, the characters are characters you've seen before. No one's kind of a new type of archetype of a character. Some of the things that these characters choose to do or not to do, which can frustrate you or not, that totally happens. The things that if you are someone who is familiar with this sort of genre of movies, if you can figure those things out, you probably will. You won't be too far off in figuring out some of the ways that these characters will act or some of the twists that may happen. With that said, I will say that when I stopped trying to figure out the plot or the why in this film, I enjoyed it a lot more. With that said, I needed to check out the fact that I do believe I did kind of guess the twist towards the end before I got there. But when I stopped myself from doing that, I was able to enjoy it until towards the end when I was reminded, like, oh yeah, I kind of figured that out like maybe 30 minutes into this. But that's okay because I stopped thinking about the fact that I figured it out and just enjoyed the movie itself. Now, is this movie scary? I don't necessarily think it's scary in the sense of jump scares, although there are one or two of those. What I will say it is that in looking at the dystopian kind of way that things descend, that there's some fearfulness in that, right? In the atmosphere of it, in the idea of it. Not the jumps, not the immediate things that happen, but the idea of what would happen to humankind when crap hits the fan. And that can be kind of scary. Whether you've experienced it or not, it can still be quite frightening to be like, yeah, that could actually happen. My final twisted grade for Awake is a solid B. Now, if you haven't already, please do in the comment section down below, let me know your favorite sci-fi, disaster, what if, dystopian kind of movie. Let me know if you even like this kind of subgenre of movie. Are you into these? Are you kind of over these what if scenarios? Do you just kind of want to go back to space or things like that? Let me know, comment down below. And also be sure to subscribe so that you are the first to know when I post my videos. Thanks for watching.